ever wondered why your dog or cat seems to know when you're having a bad day? Why is it that my pup is so comforting when things are going sideways? Is it part of their DNA? Our guest today, Bill Robertson, is the author of a new book, Uncle Bill's Animal Tales, Life Lessons for Adults. Stay with us.
Welcome to Lean to the Left, home of no-holds-barred commentary, plus interviews with fascinating people, some of them top experts, others simply with interesting stories to tell. You'll never know who'll show up at Lean to the Left. Now here's your host, Bob Gaddy.
Bill's book is about his experiences with animals and how he feels they are our greatest teachers and healers. Bill heard from a psychic in Ghana years back who believed that the pecking order of consciousness on a planet is 1, trees, 2, animals, and 3, human beings. So why is number 3 constantly trying to overtake numbers 1 and 2? In 1997, Bill got clean and sober and tells about how his cat helped to wake him up and put down the drugs and booze, and that his 2 dogs since then have helped keep him sober. Bill's from Boston originally, and I won't hold that against him because he likes the Red Sox, where he worked in corporate America for many years and ran a sketch comedy show out of Boston and New York called Heavily Medicated Fairy Tales. I don't know where that title came from. Maybe he'll tell us. Anyhow, he's written for a kid's show on PBS, sold 2 scripts to Lifetime, and wrote and produced a feature film, Paradise, A Town of Sinners and Saints, used on a musical comedy that he produced in LA and Austin, Texas, to rave reviews and sold out houses. Bill, hey, welcome to the Lean to the Left podcast. Looking forward to this one.
Hey, Bob, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad you're happy to be here because I'm glad to have you here. Hey, the subject of your book is really fascinating. What was going on in your life before your cat and dogs intervened?
Oh, Lord. Being in corporate America, I ended up becoming the head of staffing for a very large investment firm and was filling jobs left and right. And my philosophy at that time was work hard, play hard. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in corporate America in the 80s. And back then in the 80s, it was about limousines and cocaine. Make as much money as you can and party until the wee hours of the morning. So what happened was I had a big ass job. I had Lincoln Town Cars picking me up. I had tons of people reporting to me. Wow. And my drinking and drugging was getting bigger and bigger. So what was happening was the hole in my chest was getting bigger, and I had to keep filling it with more drugs and alcohol because that's what an alcoholic or addict does. And after getting clean and sober, then we fill it with being of service and God and working the steps of if you're in a recovery program. But what happened, I had a cat this cat taught me so many lessons over the years. He lived to be 20. But at the time I was living in Boston, I had a really bad hangover and I was making breakfast, and cats can come in and just start meowing and going in between your feet and rah, 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 feed me. And I was like, Casey, come on, man, just give me a break. And I took my foot and I put it on his side and just tried to push him out of the kitchen. Yeah. He slipped on the linoleum and fell on his hip. Okay. And got up and started limping. And it just hit me. I was like, oh my God, without trying to, I just abused my cat because I have a bad hangover. So later on in the day, I swear to God, that cat walked past me, was not limping until I went, Casey, you all right? And then started limping again. All right. I swear to God, I was like, you son of a, I was like, oh my God. And it really, there's certain moments in our life when we get a awakening. There's a saying I love that's pain pushes till the vision pulls. And the vision was pulling me at that time. I had tried to get sober many times, and I went to my first recovery meeting in 1977. And then I was told if I ever drank again in 1987, I was at a barbecue with a bunch of people, and this guy made chicken salad with his hands, and he had hepatitis. So
Jeez.
10 of us got hepatitis. And my doctor said to me, Bill, if you ever drink again, you'll die. You're going to die. Your liver is so messed up. So for a year and a half, I didn't drink, and I totally convinced myself if I have a drink, I'll die. So
Right.
I smoked a boatload of pot. And then I was out at a club, and a friend of mine said, Bill, do you want something to drink? And I said, I'll have a Perrier with a lime, because that's what you drank in 1987 when you didn't drink booze.
Right.
And he tapped me on the shoulder and handed me a Heineken. And I went out for another 10 years.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And then I was struck sober on April 18th, 1997. The situation with Casey had happened about maybe within that year, which kind of woke me up. And then I was struck sober, and I haven't had a drink or drug since. I have 26 years of sobriety, knock on wood, and I have it for today, just for today.
Congratulations on that. So Casey was the cat?
Casey was the cat, and Casey taught me, and this will loop back to my book. Fast forward, I moved to LA, and Casey was now 20 years old. I was giving him fluids in his neck because he was old, and we was trying to help him. And all of a sudden I developed really bad sciatica in my hip where I could barely walk.
Yeah.
And my vet said, Bill, you'll know when it's time to let him go, like when it's going to be time for us to make a decision to put him down. That night, I'm laying on my living room floor, and I got my arm extended, and Casey came over and laid down and extended his paw and touched my hand.
Okay.
And right at that moment, I knew it was time. I took him to the vet the next day. The vet said, I'll see you on the other side, injected him. And when I felt his spirit leave his body, because I felt like I was just holding the container he came in,
Yeah.
I got up to walk. My sciatica was gone.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Gone. I truly believe the cat was showing me, Bill, this is the pain I'm in.
No
You got to
kidding.
let me go.
Wow.
And I've had a lot of situations like this happen since I've been sober, because I'm awake to see it.
Yeah.
If I was drinking and drugging, I'm sure the signs were all over the place, but I
Sure.
was clouded. I had clouded eyes. I wasn't awake for it. So when I heard Malidoma Patrice Sommet, a mystic from Ghana who wrote a book, I can't remember the name of it, but Malidoma Patrice Sommet say the pecking order of consciousness on the planet is trees, animals, and humans. It made sense to me, because trees give out unconditional love.
Yeah.
They give out oxygen.
Until we cut them down to build more houses and gas stations.
It's ridiculous. So think about it. Indigenous tribes understand the importance of the pecking order.
Yeah.
So they honor everything. They replenish. When they went out to kill animals to eat, they prayed over them.
Right.
They thanked the universe for what was given to them. It's not brain surgery. It's called greed and self-centeredness run amok. It's self-will run riot.
Oh, man, I'm telling you what, I mean, it's just so disgusting what's going on today with our environment and the greed. In my opinion, this whole business of climate change is caused in part, at least, by the greed of human beings. Just
totally. Yeah.
All right. So that's for another time.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll definitely come back. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. Now, you write in the promo copy for your book on Amazon that animals can be our best healers and teachers. Exactly what did they do to help you get clean and sober? Now, you've talked a little bit about what your cat Casey did, but beyond that,
Sure.
tell me.
So after Casey died, I felt, and I was single at the time, so I felt the emptiness in the house. So I went and I volunteered at an animal shelter. Okay. My spiritual center, once a year, we'd send like 700 of us out into LA, and we would clean places and work at women's shelters and paint schools and do all these things. And I was in the parking lot at our spiritual center, and they had all the booths out. And this guy says to me, "You're going to be the head of the Critter Crusade." I'm like, "The Critter Crusade?" He goes, "Yeah, I just have a feeling you need to do that." And I had just lost the cat. So I went, "Okay, I'll do that." So I had 30 people. I called around to different animal shelters to see who would need assistance on that day, that we would come in and clean and paint. So after that day was over, I went back and continued to volunteer. And I used to walk this Cocker Spaniel, and it gave birth to 10 puppies. 5
Okay.
didn't make it, 4 big boys, and my little girl, Sophie, who's right in my arms behind you. And
Oh,
Sophie had dwarfism. I thought that was politically incorrect, but that's what it's called. And it's either that or she was a little person dog. But
I
anyway,
didn't know that.
she was
You had
bow-legged.
a dwarf dog. You still have a
Dwarf
dwarf dog.
And I said, "Oh, it's the runt." "No, she has dwarfism." And I'm like, okay. So I
Dwarf
Googled it, and it was, I guess it's pretty not popular, but it's something that happens. She was
common.
bow-legged, low to the ground. She had an underbite. She was the cutest damn thing you've ever seen. She was just so I was debating on adopting, and I was either going to adopt her, or there was this pit bull that had one eye that turned out was howling all the time.
You go for creatures that are like, what's the word I'm looking for?
They
What?
need help.
Who
They
need
be
help?
rescued. They're truly rescued, right? So this other dog, Lucky, who they used to take out of his cage and put him in the bathroom so he'd be closer to everybody out there. And if you had to go and use the bathroom, this pit bull was in the bathroom. It was just like, I was hoping I'd be lucky using the John. But anyway, I was cleaning up the top where the 5 puppies were, and they had the round pen, and the 4 boys were all standing up with their paws looking at me, and Sophie was sitting next to them because she couldn't raise her paws, and she just turned and looked at me like, "Are you going to get me the hell out of here or what?" I took her, and that dog taught me so many lessons in patience, compassion. They teach us to be humble. They give out unconditional love. I heard a long time ago, the reason why they died before us, like way before us, is that they came here already understanding unconditional love. And their job is to teach us before they move on.
Well,
Think about almost every dog I've ever met. The only ones that snip at you, they're scared, or
yeah,
they've been trained to be mean. Other
yeah,
than that, it's unbelievable. I truly, and I see it in all dogs,
yeah.
that they have this unconditional love.
Yeah.
So they've been with me through thick and thin. In 2020, my relationship ended in March. My dad died in July, and my mom was killed in a car accident in November.
Oh my God, what a horrible year.
It was a bad year. My
Yeah.
2 dogs, Sophie and Tucker, we had to name them Sophie and Tucker because that's Sophie Tucker, the
Okay.
old vaudeville star. If
All
you see
right.
the picture up behind me, that's Sophie Tucker. Everyone thinks it's my mom, but somebody gave it to me. It's a picture of Sophie Tucker. But anyway, they were by my side. I'd be on the floor crying. They'd come over and sit in my lap. They were there. You could just, and I've heard story after story of how animals show up to teach us something.
Yeah.
Think about it. A big part of it is patience, because I'm not Tucker's owner. I'm Tucker's guardian. I'm Tucker's protector.
Mm-hmm.
And you've heard this a million times, but they're part of our life. We're their whole life. We're their whole life. So I honor Tucker, and she gets me frustrated at times. She peed in the house the other day, and I gave her the bad dog thing. She can barely hear. She just looked at me like, "Really? I'm going to go if I have to go. I'm 15, for God's sakes. I'll come over and lick your hand later, and you'll totally forget about it." And then I realized right after I was bad, I looked at her and I went, she doesn't know. She's
Yeah.
doing the best she can. So I
Yeah.
went over and I hugged her and gave her a kiss on the forehead. Anyone who abuses animals or children, I think, should be given the longest sentences possible
I
and
agree.
major therapy.
I agree.
Throw them into it because it's horrible. Yeah, they need, think about it. They trust us.
Yeah. Those people should be cellmates of Donald Trump.
Oh, no, that's even too good for them. No.
All right. Hey, how can our listeners recognize their connection with animals in the home and in nature, actually?
How can they recognize?
Yeah.
All right. Like the story I told about my sciatica disappearing.
Yeah.
I think there is, and it's a choice. I feel like we've been given choices in our life as human beings. We can make, that's the freedom that we have as a human being. And I think it's, for me, I can only speak for myself. I talk to my dogs. I
Yeah.
communicate with them. I watch them. I listen to them in regards to their movement of what they need. If Tucker needs to go out, she goes to the back door and barks, and I
Hmm.
let her out. It's
Sure.
communicating with them in a way that, and it's the same thing in nature. I've got a picture of Tucker. This happened over COVID. She's laying in the backyard, and right at the end of her paw is a bird, just looking at her. Yeah, it's
Was Tucker about to eat the bird or no?
no, not at all. Was making new friends.
Oh,
You know,
making a
it's,
friend.
yeah, he was sick. She was sick of me, so she wanted to. But if you think about it, George Washington Carver said, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, that nature is fickle, but it'll share its secrets with you in the silence. I believe walking in the woods, being at the beach, meditation, and literally, I've done it with my dogs. Show me what I need to know in a way that I can understand to
Mhm.
help you.
Mhm.
I did that with Casey. And that's when that cat laid down and touched my hand with its paw. And the next day, I had to let him go.
Yeah.
There is I believe, through the silence, I go up to trees and put my hands on trees. If you haven't done it, I highly suggest you do it because you will feel the energy in a tree.
Mhm.
When I was in my early 20s, one of my neighbors, he'd been our paper boy, and I went back to visit my parents. I was working in Boston, and the kid had stolen his older brother's keys at a party, same house I used to party at, because they had other kids. And he got in a car and drunk, he drove it into a tree and died.
Oh.
And all these people put flowers around it. So it was down the street from where I lived. And my parents told me, hit that tree. So I was wearing my little business suit and I walked down to the tree, and I was in my early to mid 20s. And I, for some reason, I put my hands on the tree. The energy shot through my body from this tree. Just this energy just shot through my body. And I just started bawling, just started crying.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't really know the kid that well. He was our paper boy. I was like 10, 12, 15 years older than him. But there was that, I'll never forget that. I just got chills telling you that. My hair's standing up on my arms. Just, I remember I grabbed that tree. And ever since then, when I remember to do it, I go over and I put my hands on trees. There are also a lot of mystics and people that feel, and even scientists that know that the roots of trees are communicating under the ground with
Mhm.
each other, and that there's major energy sources in them. How do you think he made Avatar? He learned about, James Cameron understood the power of trees.
Hey, do you have any advice for people who don't have pets in their home, but are dealing with stress and anxiety or challenges to overcome like you had with alcohol and drugs?
Yeah, I do. One would be volunteer.
Mhm.
It's so important. And if you want to volunteer at an animal shelter or a shelter for humans or wherever, but volunteering gets you out of your head. And if you want more self-esteem, do esteemable acts. That's the key to getting more self-esteem, which then relieves anxiety.
What do
The
you
other
mean? What do you mean by esteemable acts?
esteemable acts is doing something for others, doing
Okay.
something that makes you feel good because it's a win. It really is. People will say, "Oh, being selfish," but no, you're not. We're
Yeah.
here to, we need self-care. It's like the old adage, if you're on a plane and they tell you when the mask comes down, put it on yourself first, so then you can help the person next to you.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. You put it on them and then you croak. It doesn't make any sense. So I think volunteering and being of service is so key to everything, and I have to be careful because there is a tradition in my sobriety that I don't mention the organization that I have gone to in order to get clean and sober. It's in our traditions. So there is a big thing that when all else fails,
Yeah.
be of service to others.
Okay.
It's so important. It's the key. I think it's one of the only reasons why we're here on the planet. I think there's only two reasons why we're here. One is to get to know more about who we are on a regular basis. Who is this being within this container that needs to drop 30 pounds? And being of service to others. Really do. That and meditation. And the thing about meditation, and I love it, I hear this all the time. I don't know how to meditate. Oh, I tried. I don't know. Shut up. It really, the key to meditation is asking yourself why you want to meditate. Like, what do you feel is the purpose? There's millions of different ways to meditate. There's no set rule. It's all it is. It's about quieting the mind. And people are like, oh, my mind just won't stop. I have the chatter. It's a practice. That's all it is. Life is a practice. I'm practicing every day to be a human being.
You know what? That kind of surprises me that you went that route with your answer. I would have thought you would have said, get a dog.
That's yeah, but you said for people that don't have them, of course, get a dog. And if you're going to get a dog, adopt, don't shop. But,
yeah, there you go.
But there's a lot of people who, and this is the unfortunate piece, they can't afford a dog.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to share something of how you can afford a dog.
So stay tuned for that insight from Bill Robertson following this quick break.
More and more organizations are giving away free food, other things like that. You just have to research it. And there's a thing called Care Credit that saved my ass. And you just go online and Google it. And it's a credit card that you can also use for yourself for dental work, but almost every vet takes it. So whenever, just 2 days ago, I had Tucker at the animal hospital because my vet's on the other side of town. It was 5 o'clock, rush hour in LA. She stepped on something or something happened where her right leg shot up in the air and she couldn't walk and she was crying and screaming. And I'm thinking she's 15, she slipped a disc or a hip, I'm going to have to put her down. Got to the animal hospital. The bill, and this was cheap, was $750. The last time she was there, because she had a stroke about 4 months ago, and she's okay from the stroke, that was $1,200. So I put it all on Care Credit, and then she has pet insurance. So then I submit to the pet insurance, the $1,200 one, the pet insurance picked it up 100%.
What pet insurance do you
I have
use?
Nationwide.
Okay.
Nationwide. But the key is you have to make sure that the vet, and you just tell them, I mean, this is the key with vets. You have to tell them, listen, I can't afford that. You need to tell me is this essential that my dog have this right now? If they go, no, you want to be careful, this doesn't happen in the future. Oh, you know what? Go away.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that unless it is essential to their life right now, or I have enough money. But you can negotiate totally. And you need to ask them before they do anything, what's the price on this? What's this going to cost? But Care Credit has made my life so much easier when it comes to.
How does Care Credit work? Is it?
You know how I learned about it? My first dog, Sophie, was vomiting and diarrhea, all this stuff, and they thought she had cancer. And the bill just kept going up, and they kept telling me what it was going to be. And they said to me at the hospital, and what they turned out, they had to do an endoscopy, and they pulled out pieces of a toy that she had swallowed, the stuffings of a toy. But they said, Bill, do you have Care Credit? And I went, what are you talking about? They called them, put me on the phone with them, and they gave me now this was me, and this was years ago. They gave me a $5,000 credit line. You have 6 months to pay it off with no interest.
Okay.
And now being with them for a while, I have a year to pay it off with no interest.
Okay.
It really helps when you get a $2,000 vet bill.
Yeah.
You want to save your dog. So there's different ways to figure it out and how to do it. And a lot of vets in different places now especially like Petco and others, PetSmart, they're doing like free vaccination days, things like that. I
Sure.
will always have a dog in my life,
Yeah.
always.
Well,
But
I
if
know
you
that
can't,
the animal shelter, Humane Society here locally, where I got my dog, Boomer, um, offer discounted vet care.
yep.
You can go there and pick up supplies. I picked up a couple blankets, a crate. I don't know what all
And the
from.
thing you have to realize that there's no regulations.
Yeah,
It's just like our medical insurance. If you
yeah.
go to a doctor and they give you a bill, do not pay it.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, do not pay it until you get a medical evaluation sheet from them that breaks everything down. And there are sites that you can go to where if you go to a hospital in your town, another hospital over could charge you $20,000 difference in an appendectomy.
Yeah,
There is no regulation for them to say, this is what you have to pay. They have a guide and
yeah,
then they can charge whatever the hell they want. Vets do the same damn thing.
yeah, yeah,
So when they tell you this is what it's going to cost, you got to have the Cayons to be able to say, you need to bring that down.
yeah, yeah.
I
Okay,
get
hey,
very
let's
passionate
talk a
about
little
it.
bit about your book. Where'd the title come from?
Sure. When I was
Who's Uncle
growing up,
Bill?
yeah, no, when I was growing up in Attleboro, Massachusetts, which is in the bowels of Massachusetts, there were like 15 guys that I hung out with. They considered themselves to be a gang.
Uh-huh.
They, we dealt drugs. They would break into houses and different things. And I would say to them, listen, you really don't want to break into that house. Or, no, I don't think we should be stealing that person's car. And one of them said to me one day, shut up. You're such an Uncle Bill. Now, if you remember, there was a show called Family Affair back in the 60s with Brian Keith, and his name was Uncle Bill.
Okay. Yeah,
And for some reason, this kid remembered that. It was like, you're such an Uncle Bill.
okay.
So my neighborhood all called me Uncle Bill. Then I got to college, and this dear friend of mine, she just passed last year. She said, hey, Uncle Bill. And I'm like, who told you that? I get into corporate America. Somebody called me that. One of my neighbors calls me that now. I'm like, what the hell? And I do have a niece and two nephews,
All
and
right.
a godfather like 5 times over, but I don't have any kids myself. It's stuck. Now, most of my friends don't call me that anymore here, but growing up, and a friend of mine said, Bill, you need to write a book. You have so many stories about your experiences with animals.
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, maybe I throw the Uncle Bill title in. So my next book is called Uncle Bill Doesn't Drink Anymore. Thank God. That's my next book.
That's pretty cool. All right. You had a career in corporate America. You mentioned it a little bit. You aged out, you said, at
Oh,
age 60. Exactly what did you do in this career of yours, the one where you were riding around in limos and all that kind of stuff?
I started as a headhunter, and then I was recruited. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but I was recruited by a large corporation, and I ended up running staffing for them. They're
All
the
right.
people who manage your 401k. So it was a big company.
All
And
right.
then I was recruited to a .com that was a kind of like Monster. It was called
Okay.
US Jobs. That one I can mention because they're out of business. And then I got into the RPO business. Actually, I can mention names. It's on my LinkedIn account.
RPO. What's
RPO is recruitment placement outsourcing. So
okay?
what they do is they hire me as a recruiter, and then they would contract me out to a large corporation. There was another large investment firm that was my client for 7 years. I was on salary, and I was as if I was a recruiter for them, but I worked remotely. And then I worked for an insurance brokerage firm at the end where I was a staff corporate now they call us talent acquisitions managers. Ooh. So I was a talent acquisitions manager for this company, but I had always written at the same time. So I worked 2 careers for a long time. And then
Okay.
in 2020, I got laid off during COVID. And then I was making a movie at that time. So I figured, you know what? I've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm going to take a sabbatical from recruiting, and I'm going to I'm going to make this film that would kind of fell in my lap. My lead producer used to run Robert Duvall's company for 11 years. And he saw the stage production of Paradise, which is a bluegrass musical comedy that ran here in LA and then at a regional theater in Austin, Texas. And he said, Bill, what about turning it into a low budget film? And I went, what? And we made it into, I raised the capital, and then we made the movie, and now Artist View Entertainment has picked it up, and we're now waiting for a release date.
That is very cool. Very cool. So that's how you shifted from your corporate job to the arts, really.
I had been doing the arts forever. When I was at, and I'll just say, when I was at Fidelity years ago, they got a kick out of the fact that I ran heavily medicated fairy tales out of New York and out of Boston. Okay. And they wrote an article on me in the Fidelity News. It was so funny. And when I wrote for the PBS Kids show, Diddy Doodle Works, I wrote for Talking Crayon. I was also in corporate America, and both Lifetime movies, even the one that they made, because they made one in 2019 that I wrote and sold, that I was still doing corporate America at the same time. I just always, because since 1997, I've been able to work remote.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I could write and run my own schedule, and I made sure I filled jobs. I never got in trouble, all of that. And I just liked doing both.
Okay.
I'd like to only do one now, so I'm hoping this continues. But
well, you only do one now?
That's all I do now. All I do now is write. I picked up an agent. I've got scripts out all over town, but we also have a writer's strike going on and an actor's strike going on. And my agent is a big union person. So right now I'm waiting on the film to sell. And that's where our distributor / sales agent is out pitching it.
Okay.
It takes a long time.
Yeah. On your Facebook page, you posted this quote: living life to the fullest is taking chances, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and knowing that it's all part of the journey for the greater good. Can you explain that?
Sure. Like I mentioned earlier, we've been given choices, and I can take chances and be vulnerable and don't have to be perfect. I read something just today. The goal is excellence. It's not perfection. And there's a big difference. If you're not taking, I know more people who are so afraid to fail that they never get started.
Yeah.
And they have to remember, failure is a gift. It's a gift. It teaches us what we have to do in order to achieve the goal. Any of these, like writing in Hollywood, everyone thinks, oh, Bill, that's so glamorous. There's absolutely nothing glamorous about it at all, right? The Oscars and the Emmys were set up originally because people working in this industry understand it's a factory town.
Yeah.
It's the only time for them to be like, hey, let's pat each other on the back for busting our balls for the past how many years. There's absolutely nothing glamorous about it. And the heavy paydays go to the big names. So other than that, you're just working your ass off. And it's a lot of turn downs. I had to take chances. I had to be vulnerable. And success isn't about, for me, success isn't about how much money I have in the bank, although it's nice. That's the gravy. I think the success is allowing yourself to be your true nature, to trust in the process, and to be able to say, I tried.
Right.
Nothing worse than hearing someone say, I was too afraid to try. To me, it's not a life wasted. I don't think anything's wasted, but I think why not experience it? Because we don't know what's on the other side. Have you seen, I just want to mention this. Have you ever seen the movie Defending Your Life?
No.
With Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep and Buck Henry and Lee Grant and Rip Torn. Defending Your Life. I've seen it like 15 times. I'm going to just tell briefly. It's so important to watch. It's a comedy. When you die, you first go to Judgment City, and they pick a certain amount of days of your life, and you go before a judge and prosecuting and a defense attorney. And you have to prove that you've walked through fear in your life. And if you have, then you move on in the universe. If you haven't, you have to come back again. It's a brilliant film. It's so funny. It's my favorite Meryl Streep film.
She's one of my favorite actresses. Absolutely.
You will not find her more likable than you will in this movie. She is so likable.
Okay. Now, there's another side to you that we haven't talked about. You recently appeared on a podcast that was billed as How to Never Stop Being Yourself, Unapologetic Coming Out Expert. Can you talk about your coming out experience?
Oh, being gay? Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Oh, my God. I dated women as a teenager in my 20s, the whole thing. I knew there was something different, though. There was something, and I fell in love with women.
Yeah.
And then I started, and I had thought about both. So I thought maybe I'm bisexual, but then it gets too confusing. Who are you going to bring to the prom? It's just a tough call. I'm kidding. And so it was the 80s.
Okay.
AIDS was kicking in. I didn't know much about it at the time. And I came out in 1984. And I remember when I told my mom, the Edith Bunker of the crowd, she was like, oh. And then she goes,
It sounds like Edith.
yeah. So she goes, so now do I treat you like a homosexual or a bisexual? And I said, first off, Mom, how many do you know? She was like,
Right.
that's. And then she was like, but you can't tell your father because he'll have a heart attack and die. And I'm like, oh, great, thanks. And he had already had a couple heart attacks. He had a bunch. And he was a Baptist. He carried his Bible in on D-Day. We still have that Bible. He read it every day. And so a couple of years go by, and she was funny because she was like, you know what? Your friend Sam is gay. Why don't we tell your father that he's gay because your dad really likes him? I'm like, what? Where is your logic? So finally, I get the call from my mom. Your dad asked me, is Billy gay? And I said, you'll have to ask him. And I said, that means yes, Mom. And she goes, I know, but I didn't know what to say. So you need to come down to Cape Cod because he wants to talk to you. I'm like, oh, Lord. So I get down there and he's sitting watching the Red Sox play. And as soon as I walked in, he goes, we need to talk about
your problem.
But your problem. I looked and I said, no, we need to talk about your problem. And he went, what? And he goes, all right, let's go for a ride. So we got in the car, we went for a ride, and being a gay male, I got to tell you, a lot of the stories are not as good as this one.
Okay.
People coming out. They're pretty horrible, actually.
All right.
This was, my dad said everything I would want my father to say. Keep in mind, he was a card-carrying Republican Baptist.
Wow.
And he said to me, Bill, I don't have to agree with your lifestyle, but I love you and you're my son. And that's all that matters.
Okay.
God, that makes me want to cry. So we came back, we sat and watched the Red Sox game. And then over the years, it was funny. Whenever you'd hear me mention a woman's name, hey, my friend Sarah. Who's Sarah? Tell me about Sarah. I'm like, Dad, she's a friend. And he would corner my female friends at parties. Do you love my son? Yeah, I do love your son. No. Do you love my son? He's gay. What if he wasn't? What are you doing? My favorite is this, though. He called me one day out of the blue. Bill, I've gone through the entire Bible and I don't see where you're going to go to hell. And I went, thanks for sharing. And in 92, my partner at the time died of AIDS.
Okay.
And I had sent him home to Dayton, Ohio to be with his family over the holidays because he was born on Christmas Eve. And I went out there to see him because his kidneys had failed and we had to make decisions and all this stuff. And he slipped into a coma and I called my dad.
Yeah.
Because I knew I'm not a Christian, but in him being a Christian, he walked the talk of the teachings of Jesus. He didn't go by what we can see now as being a bad interpretation of things. And he walked the talk of unconditional love. And I called him and he cried on the phone with me. And after my partner was cremated, they had a rock garden in the front of their house where like they would bury their dogs, and my parents were big dog people.
Yeah.
And I don't think there were any other relatives there. And they said, would you like to have Tim's ashes put in the rock garden? And that was a huge thing for them. And I
Wow.
said, that's really great. Thank you. I have a photo of my dad digging with
Oh,
the ashes to put them in there.
wow.
So my coming out experience, the AIDS epidemic was going on. So after I was out, I never went back in. And we were marching, and we were getting involved with ACT UP and Larry Kramer and those people, because the Reagan and Bush administration was not acknowledging anything, and
Sure.
people were dying. I had 3 or 4 friends commit suicide after
Wow.
getting diagnosed with AIDS. I stayed negative. And but I saw it. My partner turned into a 90-year-old overnight. It was horrifying. He got dementia, didn't know who I was. And you watch people who were so healthy when I met him, and he was
Yeah.
positive. We just practiced safe sex. And then he just declined so fast. And people, the East Coast, Boston, New York, and even LA and the West, they claim to be, we're more liberal. I got to tell you, though, I never met people so compassionate and loving and treated him better than anyone I had seen treat him was in Dayton, Ohio. And they were all my friends. I was part of a support group of people taken care of. We were all caretakers, or caregivers, taking care of our partners dying. And they were like, Bill, you're not going to the Bible Belt. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
I remember walking into his room, and he was Black, and there were 5 Black Baptist ministers in his room. When I walked in after flying in from Boston, I'm like, oh my God. They stopped what they were doing, and they all came over and introduced themselves to me. You must be Tim's friend, Bill.
Okay.
And I got that the whole time I was there. There were a couple people that were a little on edge, but
Yeah.
the nurses were not wearing gloves or masks. They were like, I was told not to get close to my patients. I don't believe that at all. I'm gonna be as close as I possibly can. That woman cried with me.
Wow. That's
And in
amazing.
Boston, there was a sign on his door that said quarantine. A lot of the people didn't speak English. They left his food outside his room. I'd get there. I turned into Shirley MacLaine from Terms of Endearment. I was like yelling, and give me a pot and give me a mop and a pail, and I'll clean his room. They weren't even cleaning his room.
Man.
It was horrible. When he worked for a large hotel chain as a banquet waiter, and he took a broken lamp out of the trash, and they fired him because they knew he was HIV. And it turned out he had AIDS. And I had to fight with their HR department. And then I got ACT UP involved, which Larry Kramer ran. And they were going to send 250 people into the lobby and shut down the place. They gave him his job back. They worked him triple shifts till he dropped and never got better and died 4 months later.
Incredible.
Horrible. I'll never set foot in that place.
That's really hard. That's really a hard story. But a lot of young people today are facing the same question about their own lives. And the way things are, it's not easy. Do you have any advice for them when it comes to their decision about coming out and how to do it and what to do and what not to do and all that kind of thing?
I think the first thing you have to realize, and everyone has a different approach. I'm not a Bible guy, but I am an energy of the universe guy, a God guy. I believe there's a power greater than myself out there that I tap into all the time.
Right.
For me, that helped. But I think what also helped, and I'm not going to swear, but you have to understand that this is your life. And right now we only know that we get one. Yeah. And you might have to let certain people go for a little while. If they truly love you, they will come back to you. If they don't, it's their loss. Yeah. But I think within the gay community, a lot of us choose our families. Right. I was lucky enough to have a family. My sister at the time, this is a good example. When AIDS kicked in, she wrote me a letter and said, Billy, I can't let you around my kids because of AIDS. And this is back when they thought you could get it from a drinking glass. And
Yeah.
she's a born-again Christian. And I said to her, I wrote her a letter. I think she called me and told me that. And I wrote her a letter and said, "Do you think this is the way Jesus would have handled it?" I said, "As far as I'm concerned, you're gone. You're out of my life. You need to do some research." And she said, "Oh, she went to this little clinic someplace." I said, "No, you need to go to Boston University and do your research. Other than that, you're not my sister anymore." And I let her go. Okay. 2-3 months later, she got back to me. She wrote me a letter and she said, "Bill, I want to apologize. I went to BU. I did the research and I have nothing to be afraid of. And I want you around my kids." So people do come back into your life if they want to.
Sure.
But it's almost, I don't know if this is good advice or not, but I think you have to be true to who you are,
Yeah.
no matter what, and give yourself some time. It might not be something that happens overnight. It took me a little while to come out. I was actually homophobic. One of my friends said to me, "Bill, you were homophobic." And usually anyone who's homophobic is getting ready to come out.
Wow.
And that's usually the case. If someone's really major homophobic, they're in the closet and they don't know what to do with the closet. Very often, I'd say 90% of the time. And so it's being empowered. And then it's in the good news is because of technology today, you can find support groups all over the country. And there are LGBTQ centers everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think the key is being true to who you are. And then from there, because if you're confident, other people respond to that. If you're hesitant and fearful, some people smell that fear and that's what they attack. You have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, but with courage.
Now, Bill, are the challenges facing the queer community worsening these days? And if so, why?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, I think it feels like the 80s again to me. It really does. It feels, and the unfortunate thing is it's lack of education around everything. And our gay community needs to be better at making people like Harvey Milk. Harvey Milk helped me come out.
Okay.
All right. Remember Harvey Milk?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
There was a documentary made, Harvey Milk, or The Life and Times of Harvey Milk, that won the Oscar in like the early 70s, I think it was. And he said, if everyone came out, there'd be no discrimination because everybody would know somebody who's gay, your butcher, the mailman, whatever. And when I heard that was the trigger that helped me come out. So today, I wish they'd stop using the Bible. Oh my God, there's nothing, it's been so misinterpreted. I've talked to experts that have gone to Italy and studied with these people, and they really misinterpreted the Bible. Man shall not lay with man has nothing to do with being gay.
Right.
It has to do with, oh, this is so horrible. It was okay to rape women, but don't rape men if you're going to go into another, because then you're humiliating and shaming them. And that's why it's in the Bible. Okay. It's about border wars. That's nothing to do with, and the other part was they need to, this is what they came up with later. We all need to populate because of border wars. So I think religion, and people are leaving the church. They're looking for spiritual centers. They're looking for other alternatives because they don't want to be told. They don't want to be taught hate. They don't want to be taught hate. And I think today, and I hate to say it, and people, Trump and even DeSantis and a lot of the others, and Trump, the irony about Trump, he was a Democrat for so many years.
No.
And he only tapped into the haters because he knew he'd get their votes. He got the bigots behind him. He didn't give a shit.
He did it. He went to the other side because he saw that where he could jump, work on people's emotions and get their support that way.
I think it's gotten out of hand, and I do feel this whole left and right, I get it. There needs to be a middle, but when people are attacking gay people, it's out of fear.
Yeah.
Out of fear. They just don't know enough. If they really got to know people, they'd be like, I'm gonna I'm in a men's meeting in my recovery, and in total, there's about 40 guys, straight and gay. There's no more than 20 on each call. And there's no attack on being gay. We all have recovery in common. If we'd all look at what we have in common more than what we don't, I just think the world would shift. But gay people, we need to be strong, because it's feeling in the 80s, we all were holding hands. We were all fighting back because it was life or death.
Yeah.
But what the right doesn't know or doesn't understand, if they piss us off enough, it's going to be trouble, because gay people will not take this. They just won't. And now we have more power than we ever did. We're a huge voting bloc.
Absolutely.
So we need to organize better to make sure. Right now, there's over 400 laws. If you go to the ACLU's website, there's over 400 laws that are not laws. What are they called? Bills that are on the dockets across the country. It's closer to 500 that are most of them are against trans. And I don't know enough about I had a friend in his 50s who became a trans woman. When he first called me, he was a comic. I thought he was kidding me. I was like, what? David, he's Bill. I've been dealing with this. I went to his wedding. I watched this kid get born. And this is what he was dealing with. And I had no idea. So I've been learning more and more. And I have some teachers that live in my neighborhood, and I was asking them about, do you think a child or someone 14 or 15 can really make a decision on that? And they have all convinced me. They were like, Bill, they're not just, it's not a whim. They're working with a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They're talking to parents, the family. They've looked at the childhood growing up. It's been a long time coming. It wasn't just a snap decision. Of course, the right uses the Bible and God, and I guarantee if they're hoping Jesus comes back, I think they should be worried about it, because if he ever comes back, first thing he's gonna do is tip over some tables, and then he's gonna say, that's not what I meant. They totally got it wrong. I do think it's all politicized. I think it's all out of fear, and it's for some reason they feel like their life is being challenged. And I'll end on this part. Isn't it ironic that most of the people on the right who push against that, they end up having a kid in their family who's either gay or trans?
Isn't that the truth?
Always.
Okay, so you have this new book in the works. You mentioned it briefly. I want to know about it. What's it about, and when's it going to be done, and all that?
All right. So there's different levels of alcoholism. There's low bottom, medium bottom, and high bottom. I was a medium bottom. I lost my scruples, but I got to keep my furniture. The book is called Uncle Bill Doesn't Drink Anymore, Thank God. So it's going to be humorous, heartfelt, and harrowing, because there was a lot of stuff that went down that I witnessed being in the wrong place. I saw a 16-year-old boy shot in the head and killed by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So it's going to be a history of my alcoholism and drug use. And then it's also going to be solutions based on how I've been able to stay clean and sober for 26 years. It's not going to be sensationalized. It's going to be a series of stories. I like to write in short stories like I did in my first book. So one can put it down and pick it up again later. But the reason I'm writing it, since COVID, a lot of people struggling with drug and alcohol abuse right now. Suicide rates through the roof. I go to a lot of meetings and on Zoom, and they're called Zoom babies. They got sober during COVID. And alcoholism, that's why I mentioned low bottom, medium bottom, high bottom. I've met people that were CEOs of companies that were up here as a high bottom drunk. And even though they had all the money, it didn't make any difference. I heard a story when I first came in. This guy used to go to meetings. He was a beautiful man. He had the most beautiful girlfriend. He had an incredible car. He had a big job. And whenever anybody would ask him how he's doing, I'm doing great, doing great. He blew his head off with a shotgun.
Yeah, he's doing really great, right?
look at all the people, celebrities recently that have committed suicide who appeared to be doing okay. Alcoholism and addiction is a mental illness. And it was coined that by the AMA a long time ago. Yet people don't look at it that way. They think, I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
You have to be rigorously honest. So the book is going to be rigorously honest. I'm hoping I'll have it out by the beginning of October or the middle of October. That's what I'm hoping. And then I'm doing a series of Uncle Bill books. Yeah, the third one's going to be Uncle Bill Found God. You want to know where? That'll be a third one. And it's like I said, I'm not a Bible guy, so it'll be more spiritually based. And then I'm going to do another one on recruiting, on how to interview for jobs, but I don't know if I'm going to make it an Uncle Bill book. But I prepped and coached people for years on how to interview. And it will be humorous, though.
Okay, good. So where can people find you have the one book now?
Yes.
Yeah. And
that's on Amazon.
Amazon. Okay. All right.
And I'm just going to use Amazon for now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How can people connect with you, though, if they want to reach out to you?
You can find me on Facebook if you want. I know I gave my info to you on that, but also an easy way, go on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn and reach out to me that way too. That's always an easy way. And then I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Okay. And so I'm on all three of those. It's a picture of me and my dogs, or it's just my dogs. So okay. You'll get a sense of that. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. And especially if you're dealing with alcohol or a drug addiction problem and you need, some advice or suggestions is better than advice, let me know and I can help direct you to some different places. But
okay,
there's help out there for everybody. You just have to make the choice to check it out.
Okay, Bill, listen, thanks very much. It's been great talking to you. I enjoyed it immensely.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners and viewers get some benefit from this discussion.
Thanks again.
Now, one more break, and I'll be back with some closing comments. Stay with us. Hey, guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you'll come back on a regular basis and check out our interviews with guests on topics that I hope you find interesting, entertaining, and enlightening. Our episodes stream weekly, every Monday. Let your friends know about this podcast and take a minute to subscribe. Just go to podcast.leantotheleft.net to subscribe, check out the upcoming interview schedule, and listen to all of our episodes. And follow us on social media. Facebook at the Lean to the Left Podcast, Twitter at Lean to the Left 1, Instagram at BobGaddy_Lean to the Left, and TikTok at Lean to the Left. And you can watch the episodes at YouTube at Lean to the Left. And don't forget to visit our blog site, leantotheleft.net, where you'll find commentary on the news by some excellent writers with progressive perspectives on a whole range of topics. You can sign up as a member there, and of course, it's all free. Now, this is Bob Gaddy signing off for Lean to the Left. Thanks for sharing your time with us.